Praise the Lord. All right, so it says under broken relationships, it says death of a relationship leaves one or both parties involved reeling from the after effects of the hurt. I have highlighted here, Satan often uses misunderstandings to thrust his fiery darts and cause deep wounds in our spirit and our soul. I'll read that again. Satan often uses misunderstandings to thrust his fiery darts and cause deep wounds in our spirits and in our souls. There is nothing worse than thinking you understand something that you really don't understand. And the only thing that really, Sister Joanne, keeps us from understanding is our inability to ask questions. Because we don't want nobody to know we don't get it.
Right.
And so we'd rather walk around not getting it and walk around with this misunderstanding. And so because of that, it keeps us in a place because we don't want nobody to think we ain't smart as everybody else. Y'all might as well be honest. You ever been in the classroom and you didn't understand what was going on, but you was too scared to raise your hand? And you ain't asked a question why? Because you ain't want nobody to know you didn't understand what it seemed like everybody else was getting. And so what the enemy does is even with our relationships, when things don't go the way we think they should go, when things don't happen the way we think they ought to be happening, or when things happen and it feels like the rug has been pulled out from under us, when we go to try to get what we call closure, we oftentimes don't get closure because before a person starts talking, we already start saying, oh, I understand. When truth is, you really don't understand. Because if you really understood, then maybe your feelings really wouldn't be hurt the way they are. Am I making sense? And so because we have these misunderstandings, even though a person may tell us something, because we have this difficulty with understanding what a person says. Because I can tell you something, but if I don't make sure that you understand what I said when you leave my presence, then you really don't know. I'm a firm believer until you can explain something to the place where I leave with an understanding, you don't know. So don't come telling me what somebody else said if you can't explain it to the point where I understand exactly and I'm not confused, then you don't know it. And so consequently, this is how a lot of our relationships end up going when they're broken, because we don't go to people and get understanding. We don't go to get closure. We just automatically assume, well, I know why you did that, but you really don't know why I did that. Because truth be told, sometimes we don't know why we did that. Am I making sense? Okay. It says, he tries to kill the unity of friends, loved ones, and members of the body of Christ. How many folk have you fallen out with in church because y'all misunderstood each other? And then once one of the people got over their pride, they started talking about something, well, you said this, and that meant this, and they started telling, well, that ain't what I meant. I didn't mean it like that. And then you start saying, well, had I known that, then I wouldn't have been walking around talking about you. I wouldn't have been walking around mad at you had I really understood what you meant. And the reason many times we don't get an understanding because somebody got to take low because everybody want to be right. Everybody can't be right. I'll be the first person to admit I don't know everything. But what I will tell you is let's go get the answer together. But that takes a level of humility that many people do not possess in this day and time. Case in point, I shouldn't say this, but case in point, look at our current president. How many broken relationships now do we have because of his attitude and his arrogance? I just found out yesterday, talking with some brothers about, about farming and how the crops, with these farmers, they're losing everything because there are broken relationships. And so what happens if you translate that to the body of Christ, if the pastor has broken relationships with the people, then the people are going to perish. That's why I focus so much on building what?
Relationship.
Because if we build relationship, that means you understand me and I understand you. And so therefore, can't nobody come and tell me what you're thinking, because I got relationship with you. I can come ask you myself. Does that make sense? But the enemy understands that the more we become close to one another, or the more we get into relationship with one another, the stronger we will be and the stronger we will become. Because when I'm in a relationship with you, I enter into covenant with you. And because I'm into covenant with you, then I'm going to pray for you. And when I see you going in a way, or I see some things happening in your life that ain't godly, or I start seeing some things that got you down, because we're in relationship, because we're in covenant, then I'm going to do what I got to do to start reaching out to you, to make sure you don't get stuck in that place you in. And the enemy knows that one can chase 1,000, but two can do what? How many? That's some crazy math. So when you're in a relationship with somebody who really cares about you, you become a threat to the enemy's kingdom. So therefore, he would rather you keep your misunderstanding and not talk to me, because therefore you don't connect, and there's only 1,000. He can handle 1,000, but he can't handle 10. Am I making sense? All right, let's go. It says, our first response needs to be one of asking forgiveness of God, and if possible, the other person involved. Can I tell you a secret? You know why most of us don't get forgiveness? Because we don't think we did nothing wrong. We always think that the other person is the wrong party. Trust me, it's somebody you've offended. It's something you said that pushed somebody and sent them the wrong way. And truth be told, forgiveness ain't really for the other person, it's really for you. Because as long as you walk around with that hurt that you've caused somebody, as long as you walk around and never get that straight, you got that person's blood on your hands. And so then you put yourself in the same position that David was in when David wanted to build God a temple. What did God tell him?
See, he couldn't build a temple because he's a man of war and he was a bloody man.
How you going to build God a temple when you got the blood of your brothers and sisters on your hands because you won't get stuff straight? How do you think your worship goes up? How do you think your prayers are going to be answered, and you walking around harboring things, or you walking around hurting people and you won't get that stuff straight? Forgiveness is a two-way street. It frees you, and it also frees the other person by letting that other person know, you know what, I recognize that I hurt you. I recognize that I offended you, and truthfully, that's really not what I intended to do. That's really not what I meant to do. And the one thing I need you to do is to forgive me if you can. That's why a lot of people have such a hard time worshiping on Sundays. They got a hard time praying. Because all of that stuff that you're holding on to, if you don't start letting it go, it weighs you down. And the more weight you put on you, the harder it is to get up. And then after a while, you just start walking around comfortable in that place as if that's where God intended for you to be, because you start saying, well, this is just my lot in life. This is just how life is supposed to be. This is just how life is going to be. And that's not the case. Are y'all with me? It says, secondly, we must forgive the other person. by an act or will and consistently keep it committed to Christ. We can't afford to go back and play with the details of the problem anymore. In other words, quit rehearsing what somebody did to you. Why every time you meet somebody you want to tell them what so-and-so did to you? You ain't gonna never get over it. You ain't gonna never heal from it. You ever seen somebody with a scab and every time you look at them, they just picking at it?
Yeah.
They always bothering it. And they trying to figure out why it won't heal because you won't leave it alone. And the more you bother it, the more you start to agitate it, and next thing you know, that thing starts to spread.
Yeah.
Or that very thing becomes infected. Y'all get what I'm saying? Am I making sense? So you got to learn how, if you're going to let something go, commit it to God and be done with it. You cannot trust God to keep you and then don't think that God can help you stay in the forgiving place of somebody else. That don't make sense. You trust God to pay your bills, but you don't trust God to help you get over this issue you got with somebody. How does that work? And that's the reason a lot of mothers and daughters, fathers and sons have issues, because they don't know how to let stuff go. Kids can't wait to put their mama or daddy in the nursing home because they hold on to that whooping they got when they was 10 years old. They ain't let that thing go yet. Oh, I can't wait till you get old, you know. That's not how God intends for us to operate. But when we operate in that vein, we have this spirit that begins to take hold of us, and it's working as a python snake, and it just wraps itself around us so much so to the point that we get to the place we can't even breathe. Because you're busy walking around mad. Do you know anger takes your breath away?
Yes, it does.
You know, it takes more energy to walk around mad and frowning and sad than it does to smile. I mean, you really got to work to walk around and just keep a frown on your face. I don't want to work that hard. I mean, you mean to tell me out of 24 hours in the day, nothing excites you? You haven't come across anything worth smiling about? There's nothing in life that brings you joy. Everything you touch, it's nothing but sadness to it. That's an issue. And my problem is not with those that are not saved that go through these spells and cycles because I expect it from them. My issue is when the church folk are like that. I don't understand how you a praise and worship leader, but you ain't never smiled. How you ushering on the door and you got a frown on your face? Love time come in church and you don't go hug nobody. And then get mad because ain't nobody come and hug me. Everybody ain't got to come to you. Y'all understand what I'm saying? And so then what happens is, again, we start creating these misunderstandings, thinking people feel a certain way that they really don't feel. And because we ain't bold enough to go get it straight, so when love time comes, you start avoiding people. Because you listening to other miserable people, so now they got you miserable. Because you my friend and you mad, I'm going to be mad. Foolishness. Y'all can act like y'all don't see it on Sundays, but I see it every week. Am I lying?
No.
Oh, okay.
I see it.
Thank you for the one note.
I see it.
It says, can't afford to go back to the problems or the details of the problem anymore. We must practice must practice bringing every thought into obedience and think only the good reports and of pure things. It says, binding the work of the enemy and walking out forgiveness is a continual process as God does his healing in our spirit. But it's a continual process. Can I be honest with you? You ain't gonna change overnight. And nor is the person that offended you. There is no instantaneous turnaround. There is no instantaneous success when it comes to walking out your spiritual journey, because there are some things, just like it took you a long time to learn how to do it, it's going to take you some time to get rid of it. Anybody ever smoke? Was a smoker? Okay, when you first started smoking, you didn't know what you was doing. You was coughing and all of that, but you was committed to learning. So you kept buying pack after pack, because you was committed to learning. And you have to be there. You have to have that same commitment when it comes to letting stuff go and letting God bring healing to you, because it's a continual process. So no, you might not be completely over today, but I'm going back at it. I'm going to keep on praying. I'm going to keep on trusting God. I'm going to stop avoiding you. So maybe I avoided you 3 times Sunday. Next week, it'll only be 2 times. Week after that, it's only going to be 1 time. Then after that, I'm going to make it a point to get to you. It's a continual process. That means we are growing, and because we are growing, it is progression, but you can't stop the process because you get tired of the process. It ain't easy. Don't you think that the enemy is just going to let you love folk and just let you be free when he done had you in his grips all this time? He's like a jilted lover. Y'all ever had somebody that broke up with you, or you broke up with them, and they done turned into a stalker? Calling your phone, won't let you go on no date, hiding in the bushes. Every time you go somewhere, they there. Won't leave your friends alone. Still coming to family dinners. Y'all do realize that's how the enemy is. He ain't trying to let you go. And the reality is, he really don't want you. He just don't want you to move on. He's good with you if you sitting at home by yourself crying. He okay. He's fine with you as long as you somewhere cussing folk out. He cool. But the minute you decide, Brother Gary, you going to start praying 3 times a day, oh, he got a problem with that. So then he's going to start trying to put little stuff in your way to distract you from praying. Oh, I got to cut the grass. I need to do this. I got to feed my, you got a cat or a dog?
Cat.
I got to feed my cat. Oh, I got to go here and volunteer. And so what happens is the enemy starts creating these avenues, or trying to present these avenues to us to get us off our job, to get us off course. I want you to know he don't want to let you go, because he felt like he was good to you, although the only thing he did was abuse you. So it's a continual process, because the way we trusted who we were before is how we need to trust God. And we have to trust that God is going to do for us what he said he was going to do for us. So he says again, it's a continual process as God does his healing in our spirit by restoring the wholeness we need. It will often take a duration of time before we stop hurting, but we can be assured that we are not holding anger, guilt, unforgiveness, or anything that might open the door of the door of access to the destroyer. Again, it does not stop overnight, but you have to forgive and let God be God. God can only do as much as you allow him to do. I've told you before, I've said it once and I'll say it again, God is a perfect gentleman. God will never violate you. God will never violate your will. And that God loves you so much that if you want to go to hell, he'll let you. So he don't want you to go. But if that's just your choice, he ain't going to stand in your way. Am I making sense? All right. Next, we're going into depression. Somebody read depression for me.
Depression is an epidemic that University of Pennsylvania researcher Martin Silverman estimate costs Americans up to $4 billion in lost work and medical bills.
Oh, sorry. Y'all hear that number?
$4 billion.
The depression. Y'all know what depression is?
Sadness.
And it says it costs people up to how much?
$4 billion.
So now you on Xanax, you on, what's that other drug? Allegra, Zoloft. You taking all these pills to help balance you out that really ain't doing nothing but throwing you out of whack. Because truth be told, God has already put inside of you what you need. But because we don't let the Holy Ghost rise up in us, we have to fall back on all these man-made things. And so we're constantly looking to man to give us the relief that God promised us. Man can't give me what God promised because it's not man's to give. Hello? Go ahead, keep on reading. $4 billion.
But
It says in lost work. I mean, you can't even get out of bed. Because you depressed, your kids ain't eating. You ain't eating. You ain't paying your bills. All because somebody told you they don't want to date you no more. Somebody told you, you know what? I don't think this is working for me. Your whole life is all upset because you came to church and they wouldn't let you sing a solo. Never mind, you can't sing. Never mind, you don't even come often enough. But we find ourselves going into depression. And then we pull people with us. And this is the type of stuff that's costing. $4 billion in lost work and medical bills. You're going to see a doctor to tell you what's wrong with you, although you already know what's wrong with you, but you won't be honest about what's really wrong with you. Hello? You mad because mama didn't buy you that tricycle when you was little? No, that ain't your problem. The problem is you walk around as an entitled individual thinking that every time you want something, you're supposed to get it because nobody ever told you no. So now you can't handle rejection. When you finally get old enough and hear a no, you want to go into depression talking about some, this ain't how life was supposed to be. Because all the while I was growing up, my mama gave me what I wanted, my daddy gave me whatever I wanted. Everybody just spoiled me. And so now life is just oh so unfair because ain't nobody giving me what I want. But nobody told you when you was growing up, there's going to come a point in time where the stuff you want, you really got to work for it. As a child, parents are obligated to take care of you and meet your needs and give you some of your wants. But your wants are not their priority, your needs are. But here it is, as we become adults, our needs become our priority and our wants become more of a priority than our needs. And when we don't get those things met, we go into depression. We all upset, we bent out of shape. That's why some of our marriages don't work. That's why some of our relationships don't work. That's why we can't get along with nobody on the job. Because don't nobody do what you want them to do. Everybody ain't obligated to do what you want them to do. We have to understand and we have to learn that as children, yes, the world revolved around us. But once you become an adult, the world gets real small. It ain't about you. Hello? I know y'all don't want to hear that kind of stuff. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's Christmas time. Everything's supposed to be about you. But it ain't. I'm still waiting on that BMW under the tree and it ain't came yet. I ain't depressed about it. I'm just going to keep praying that my wife go out and get it. That's all. I'm just praying. And see, the thing is, here's the reality. Here's the reality. As believers, we are not taught practicality. We're taught just have faith, name it, and you gonna get it. Nobody told me, although I have faith, There's still work I got to put in. There's an ethical and moral behavior that has to be attached to my work before God can release it, because God wants to know that once I get it, he can trust me with it. And really, God already knows if he can trust me with it. God's just trying to see if I know if he can trust me with it. Do you know you well enough to handle what it is you're asking God for? Can you really handle what you're asking God to give you? Are you really ready for it? And you mad because you've been praying for the last 6 months to get a house, but you won't even keep your apartment clean. Why God won't give you more space for you to be a bigger mess? When you had a car before, you wouldn't get nobody a ride to church. Now you're asking God for another car, and you still ain't gonna get nobody a ride to church. And you mad because God ain't blessing you. No, God knows you ain't ready. Am I making sense? So a lot of the stuff we're frustrated about, a lot of the stuff that we're depressed about, really, we don't need to be depressed about. We have to go back and start reevaluating. Wait a minute. What I'm asking for, can I really handle this? Is God saying no because he wants to reject me, or is God saying no because he's protecting me? And see, we always take God's no as a rejection, and we don't see it as protection. And some stuff you better be glad God didn't give it to you. Some people you better be glad God didn't let them in your life. Because you see how they are now, and had you stayed connected to them, you'd be in a worse off place. Am I making sense? All right, now look at me funny. Go ahead, Sister Joanne, I'm sorry. Go ahead, where you stop at? Medical bills, that's where you stop.
Its social cost is enormous. Broken marriages, troubled children, suicide, even homicide. The National Institute of Mental Health says 1 in every 5 Americans, 40 million people, have significant symptoms of depression at any one time. About 2.4 million of them suffer severe clinical depression. Depression is the oldest known psychiatric disorder, but scientists still don't know what causes it, much less why most of its victims are women.
Okay. I highlighted that portion. One, it says, but scientists still don't know what causes it. So why are we going to people trying to fix something that they don't even know why it's happening? We spend more time going to the doctor than we do seeking God on how to deal with certain issues like this. Most of our mental things, or most of our mental issues that we're suffering with, if you spend some time in prayer and couldn't let other folk lay their hands on you, you'll be all right. Stay out of all these prayer lines. Quit buying all that oil off of TV. Buying that holy blessed water from that person over and out because it's supposed to make you, no, leave that stuff alone. Because there are spirits attached to those things. And you don't know the kind of spirit that's on that person. So why are you going to go off and take their oil and start lapping it on yourself? And now you trying to figure out why you all feeling funny and now you ain't been right ever since. And then you want to come up in here and bring that spirit in here talking about some, ooh, pastor, pray for me. Am I making sense? Second thing it says much less why most of his victims are women. Y'all know why? Here it is. The difference between women and men, women are emotional, men are logical. Men compartmentalize, women are like purses. You look in a woman's purse, open, everything is in there. It may not be organized, but everything is in there. You ain't never got to wonder what a woman think, what she feel, what she want to say. She gonna tell you whether you want to know or not. Okay? Men, on the other hand, we compartmentalize. So I got this in this pocket. I got something in this pocket. I got peppermint in this pocket. But if I want my peppermint, I just go in this pocket. I ain't got to go in this pocket. So whatever issues are in this pocket, I ain't got to deal with them. I ain't got to see them because they're out of sight. And so as a result, because women are more emotional, if their emotional needs are not being met, then they start feeling dejected and rejected. Because you're not hearing me, you're not talking to me, you're not responding to me. So now she starts to feel lonely. And the more she starts to feel lonely, she starts to back up into this place where she feels she's by herself. And next thing you know, she's pushing everybody away because don't nobody love me anyway. Because the people that were around me that I was supposed to be able to reach out for help, I can't reach them. The man in my life, he comes in the house and he just goes in the basement because he don't want to deal with the life issues as if he stops thinking about them. They're going to go away as if we don't talk about it. It's going to solve the problem. No, the problem is still there. And then the problem becomes compounded because now I feel like not only do you not care that we're going through, you don't care about how we're going through. It's affecting me. So now I got two burdens on me now. And so the more and more that a woman starts to put all that pressure on her back, although she is not meant to carry that stuff on her back, she feels beat down. The next thing you know, she feels like she's by herself. Now she ain't got nobody to talk to, and she done prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed. She done came to church. She done did everything she know how to do, and it seems like it's not getting better. And the very person that's supposed to be there connected to you to help pull you through ain't giving you no help at all. And so now you feel as if not only has God abandoned you, not only has life let you down, but now you start to feel like you're worthless and you ain't got nothing worth living for in the first place. So maybe life would just be better off if I wasn't around in the first place. So now your depression leads you to suicide. Am I making sense? Your depression leads you to going out to finding a place for anybody to love on you, even if the love is illegal. Even if the comfort is going to kill you, you just want to feel something. Men, on the other hand, because we want to try to be logical about everything, we want to try to think everything through, we're going to compartmentalize, and I'm not going to deal with this until I'm good and ready to deal with this, irregardless as to how much it may be causing damage in my life, irregardless as to how much it is causing me pain. I'm not going to deal with it because if I don't face it, it ain't real. It only becomes real when I acknowledge its existence. And so truth be told, the only reason why they say it's more women than men is because women are more open and men suffer in silence. Am I making sense? All right. Get off that. But that's one of the reasons why in this upcoming year, I'm really pushing to have mental health partners. Because I'm a firm believer, everything ain't going to be fixed with a visit to the pastor's office. But we need to have mental health professionals, people that we can refer you to get the kind of help we need. And the truth be told, we have these issues more in the Black and African American community than any other place. Because in the African American community, we've made a therapy taboo.
Yeah.
We've made it seem like if you got a mental health issue, something wrong with you. No, it ain't always that something is wrong with me, but I need somebody to help me learn how to love myself because I'm in a church full of people who don't love themselves, and because they don't love themselves, they don't know how to love me, and because they got issues, they're projecting their own issues onto me, and so now I'm sitting in the very place where I'm supposed to get life and I'm dying. I'm coming in week after week and I'm leaving worse than what it was when I came. How is it that you're in a place where God's Spirit falls and yet you walk out of here in deep depression and feeling down? Even on Sunday with the move, with the way that the Lord was moving out, he still heard some people in the Spirit saying, "What about me, Lord?" You ain't got no word for me? What about me? And the reality was, he had already spoke to them. He had already told them. But what he told them wasn't glamorous, so they didn't want to hear that. Everything God does, he's not going to do it out in the open.
Yeah.
I've learned most times the reason God will give a word that's out in the open is for two reasons. One, to increase the faith of those around, to let people know he's still moving. And then two, to make other people become accountable for what they're hearing. And so now because I heard the word of the Lord tell you you're not going to be depressed no more, that you're going to get rid of those suicidal ideations, then that means God's going to put something in my spirit to always start calling and checking on you. God doesn't give you a word in front of everybody just to put you on blast. He does it so that you can create that support system. So, because he's going to put it in some people's spirit because they don't know why they keep praying for you. They don't know what it is about you that has them always drawn to you. And now you were in that worship service and now you didn't heard what the Lord said. And so, oh, now it clicks. But if you always in that place, what about me, Lord? You always depressed, then how God gonna use you? God can't use you in your depressed state. Am I making sense? And some of the stuff people holding on to ain't got nothing to do with God. We mad at people who were in position because they didn't believe us when we said God said such and such to us. And so because they didn't believe us, they didn't use us. And so now we backing up from everybody. When God has a call on your life, when God has a purpose and a plan for you, there is nothing that nobody can do to stop it. But you also have to ask yourself, is it time? Just because he told you don't mean it's time. You can still be in your season of preparation. Because I was at an ordination Sunday for a young man who was being ordained as an elder in the church. And my prayer for him was not that the thorns don't come. My prayer for him was that he's able to handle the thorns, but he don't mistreat the people in the process. And the reality is many believers, we taking our thorns, but we're mistreating the people in the process. So consequently, God says you ain't ready. Because to walk this walk, you got to be able to endure some stuff. You got to be able to go through some stuff. And then you have to be mature enough to not make people pay for something they didn't. Am I making sense? All right. It says first steps. He says, I have found in dealing with Christian people that one of the first steps down the road to depression is a neglect or loss of interest in God's word. How many of you got a desire to study? You got a burning desire to pray. You always find yourself meditating and thinking on the word or something that leads you to God. When you feel that moving away from you, when you know, let me ask like this. I'll go a whole day, and in the midst of that day, I done preached 4 or 5 sermons in my head. I'm looking at scriptures, I'm listening to stuff, I'm seeing stuff. My cousin called me at 7:30 this morning just to talk about the scriptures. But when I find myself getting to the place I don't want to talk about that, something wrong. When you get to the place where you feel yourself not wanting to be connected to God and not yearning after God like you used to, something wrong. If you're in a place and that place is not even pointing you to God like they used to or like they need to, something wrong. But the thing is, you have to learn how to recognize where you are and be honest about where you are. Because if you ain't there, then you need to get there. How do you get there? Little by little. You understand what I'm saying? It doesn't happen overnight. You don't lose interest overnight. You ever lost interest in a person you was dating? It didn't happen right away. It happened over time. Little stuff they kept doing. Next thing you know, you won't be bothered with. What the enemy does is he reminds you every time you go to church when something didn't go your way. When you went to go put on a program and didn't nobody show up. When you were supposed to speak and everybody was talking while you was up talking. Ain't nobody come tell you it was a good job. Ain't nobody come tell you it was good to see you. Ain't nobody come and say to you, ooh, you showed great that birthday. So little by little, the enemy starts reminding you of these things. And next thing you know, you start saying to yourself, maybe I did hear from God. Maybe God really is with me. Maybe I don't need to be doing this. Every time you feel the urge to study, you start putting it off. I'll get to it later. And next thing you know, later never comes. And here it is now, you done missed one Sunday. Now you done missed the Sunday and on this. You done missed 2 Sundays. You showed up on Wednesday because you didn't want nobody calling you. So you showed up, but you still didn't come on Sunday, so you missed 2 Sundays. Oh, well, I'm going to go over to such and such a church. Now you over somewhere else that God didn't assign you. So that preacher don't have what you need. Not saying they ain't a good preacher, but if God assigned you to a certain place, then God has worded that preacher's mouth with what you need. And so consequently, because we hop around place to place, we miss our word of deliverance and freedom because we're in the place we ain't supposed to be. Am I making sense? All right. Okay, it says, so they become so taken up with the process of living that they neglect the basic spiritual exercises that are required of all who wish to maintain their Christian experience. You got to pray, you got to study, you have to spend time alone with God. You're not going to get it all on a Sunday morning, in a Sunday morning worship, in a Sunday morning Sunday school, or in a Bible study lesson. You've got to make it a point and a priority, just as you talk on the phone to your best friend every day, to spend some quality time with God. People keep saying, well, God ain't talking that much. No, he's talking a whole lot. He just ain't talking to you because you don't talk to him. I need to find out what God's will is for my life. How many of y'all prayed that prayer? Lord, just tell me what your will is for my life.
Yeah.
If you spend time in Scripture, you spend time in prayer, and you wait for him to respond, he'll tell you. I had somebody ask me, Pastor, why I can't get a husband. Honey, I don't know. Ask the Lord why he ain't gave you no husband. You understand what I'm saying? You cannot neglect God and then expect God's benefits. That's like calling off for work all week long and expecting a paycheck at the end of the week. It don't work that way. You got to show up in order to get, and that's the same way with God. You got to spend time with him. You got to spend time in study. You got to spend time in prayer. You've got to fast even when the church ain't called to fast. You got to develop your own personal relationship with God, and you're going to have to walk it out in the faith that you have in God. My faith can't be your faith because I believe God for some crazy stuff. And then you got to be able to stand when people looking at you crazy because you believe in God for some crazy stuff. You can't let them shape what you believe and what you know God done said to you. Look at Abraham. Abraham, go to a land, I'm going to show you. Where am I going? You just keep walking and I'll tell you when you get there. You got that kind of faith? But that kind of faith only develops when we spend time with God. I don't understand the church in this day and age that don't want to spend no time in prayer. Church call a prayer meeting, ain't nobody gonna show up. You call your favorite revivalist, you can't find a place to sit. And then we'll sow. Okay, let me not go there. Where I stop at? It says, after a time, these people began to feel the weight of serving because the joy of the Lord has ebbed out of their... Yeah, ebbed out. I gotta look up that word. I ain't never seen that word before. Yeah, I ain't never seen ebb. Got you. Okay, the Lord, let me see, let me go back. Because the joy of the Lord has ebbed out of their life and they are left with the dull mechanics of Christian living. In other words, they're just going through the motions. They begin to withdraw from their responsibilities as they retreat behind the walls to seek the seclusion until loneliness becomes a way of life. It is too much to bother to invite people over for dinner anymore. Life takes on a sameness that becomes more and more like the dark tunnel without an exit. My note says you are not to stay alone. Isolation can help and it can hurt. If you're going to seclude yourself, it must be done with God's guidance. Isolation can help and it can hurt. But if you're going to seclude yourself, it must be done with God's guidance. Because there are periods where isolation will bring elevation. And sometimes if you got too many people around you, you ain't going to be able to hear. So God has to get some folk away from around you. He has to still the noise. But you cannot think that you are an island and you have to back up and retreat to yourself, because when you do that, you have no lifelines, you have no support. And when you need support because you've isolated yourself, because you felt as if it wasn't worth it to reach out to anybody, next thing you know, you're going to die by yourself. I was 17 years old and I was serving at a Christ Temple Baptist Church with Bishop DeMay Meyer. In that time that I was serving, there was a brother who used to come to the church, but he lived by himself. He was known for coming and going, disappearing. He would show up and he would disappear. So we didn't think nothing of it. One day that brother died. But because we had gotten used to him, always hitting and missing, we didn't think nothing of it. We found him a month later. Because even his family was used to him disappearing like that. One day his daughter was trying to call him. She called him for a week straight. Didn't get an answer. By the time we found him, his body was badly decomposed. Hardly recognizable. Turned him over, skin and everything was stuck to the carpet. What are you saying? What I'm trying to get you to understand, the longer you stay in isolation, the longer you stay secluded from people, the longer you stay secluded from the fellowship of the saints, you'll get to a place where we ain't gonna recognize you. And when you die, you're gonna die alone. And when you die alone, there's nobody there that's gonna be able to revive you because you disconnected from us a long time ago. Whatever you do, don't let the enemy cause you to disconnect. Even if you need some alone time, say, I need some alone time. Tell somebody where you're going. I'm going on a sabbatical. I'm taking the next few weeks to be praying over some stuff. I'm getting off of social media. You know, I ain't disappearing, but I need to spend some time with God. So even if we ain't bothering you, we know how to track you. Am I making sense? Do not, especially in this season, let the enemy make you seclude yourself and make you think that you're in this thing by yourself. Y'all got it? We've got to move through the spirit of heaviness, but the only way to really get through it is to stay attached to people. You got to open up your mouth and talk. You ain't got to tell everybody your business. But God will even in that, God will start showing you who you can and who you can't share certain stuff with, because some people can't handle it. Sometimes you telling somebody what you dealing with, Brother Chris, it's going to send them into a depression because they can't handle all that. So we have to learn how to exercise wisdom. Am I making sense? Amen. Any questions? No? Okay. Well, let's give God praise for our YouTube visitors. Amen. We want to say thank you so much for joining us by way of YouTube. We do pray that something was said or something was done that will encourage you to deepen your walk with God, that will encourage you to deepen your study with God. Most of all, that it will encourage you to stay connected to God. As always, you are more than welcome to be my guest here at the Samaritan Missionary Baptist Church, 8806 Mack Avenue. We look to see you Sunday, matter of fact, will be a good day to come and worship and fellowship with us. All right? Pray God's blessings upon you. Come on, let's give God praise one more time.